Once upon a time, there was an orphan girl named Taya, and she had long braids on both sides of her head, but then she wrapped them up over the top like that. And she lived in a village near a castle, and the castle had huge turrets that flew up into the sky. You could barely see the tops of them. Do you know what a turret is?
No.
It's like the round part of the castle, like a spire. And one day, she found a magic silver box, and it was all sparkling. It had diamonds and rubies all around it, and it was beautiful, but she couldn't get it open. So she took it to the local jeweler, the man with the little spectacles, and he looked at it, and the spectacles fell down his nose, and he's like going, I can't get it open either. And he used a diamond-tipped knife, but he couldn't even put a scratch in it. He couldn't get it open at all. It was just locked shut, just solid locked. So she went to a carpenter, because she thought a carpenter had all the right tools that could open the box, right? Like maybe some kind of something to pry it open. Mm-hmm. And he tried a giant saw, but even the giant saw couldn't get through the box. So she went to the falconer and had his falcon drop it from 200 feet in the air, just flew over and just dropped it and dropped to the ground, hoping that it would break open, but it still wouldn't open. A very stubborn box.
Wow.
So she walked over to these iron gates that were closing, and she tried to stuff it in there so that it would crack open when the gates shut, and it still wouldn't open.
Just jammed the door.
She stuck it in the fire at the foundries. She thought, I'll just burn it open. All this heat, maybe it will melt it open. There's got to be something in this box that I have to see, right? But when the smelter man took it out with the tongs, when he reached in, because it was so hot and he couldn't get it with his hands, he still couldn't get it open. So she went to the blacksmith in the village, and the blacksmith used his biggest hammer, like this huge, and he still couldn't open it. So then where she went was the village's best archer, and the archer put it over there, pulled his bow back, and shot the arrow as hard as he could at the box, and it still wouldn't open. So she took it to the quarry, and the quarryman swung huge picks at it. We've had a pick before, you know what that is. Mm-hmm. Picking at the box, trying to get it open, and it still wouldn't open. And this was all jewel encrusted, and nothing was breaking at all on this box. They couldn't even put a dent in it. So then there was an old woman with all warts on her face and a big hooked nose and all this scraggly hair and this ugly robe hanging down. She was all dirty and grimy. And she was standing by a headless statue of the king. And she said to hold it to a mirror and to open it backwards. So she was really creepy, but she had a good suggestion. Do you think it worked?
Maybe.
Well, she did it, and she found a key inside the box. So the box opened. There was this big, long key, kind of like with a big head on it. It was about 3 inches long with a big hook on the end. And she went to the library and tried to help the librarian open a rusted shut book vault. And the book vault was this great big huge door, and it just seemed like that was the kind of key that would fit into that. But it wasn't the right key. So then she went over to the gardener's shed, and she had to go through all this overgrown weed area just to get to the shed, because she wanted to get flower seeds to plant at the local orphanage in the village. But it didn't fit that either. So she kept walking around the village trying to find a place where this key would fit. She tried it on a door to the room where the head of the orphanage locked up all the toys. But the head of the orphanage was really mean, nasty old man. He was really tall and skinny and all bent over. So she tried to just put it in there really quick just to get out the toys, and that didn't fit either. So it wouldn't fit the key to the lock at the boathouse where all the boats were. It was really creepy down there because it was really dark by this time. And she was trying to fit it in anything she could find. And she always wanted to try a canoe. And the canoe was just sitting there. But it's really hard to just do it by yourself. But she tried it, and she went across this lake until she got to a playground. And she climbed out of the canoe, and she went to the playground, and she tried it on the gate so she could get into the playground. But she couldn't get in. So by now, the moon was shining over everything. Everything was shimmery and sparkly, and she was walking down an alley, and she was like ready to give up because it didn't fit any of the locks in the village. And she had tried it on everything, right? And it had to be something old because the key was rusty and gold, and it had to fit something really old, right? Mm-hmm. And she was ready to give up when she saw a light behind the door of the theater. And the light from the theater showing was just coming out like in little strips. And she tried it on the door, and the key opened the door. And she saw all the actors from the theater throwing a party. And they were dancing and jumping up and down and jumping on each other. And they had two people that had people on their shoulders, and they were having chicken fights. It was crazy. And then she walked in, and there was a little door, how they have the trick doors on the bottom of the stage. And she saw that there was a lock on that. So she stuck the key in there, and she turned it, and it opened. And it was all these old costumes from the 1800s from the theater, long time ago. And they were worth billions and billions of dollars. And she went and she sold them all on eBay with the help of the actors. And she made so much money for the orphanage that all the orphans were happy.
Does internet exist all that way?
It's awesome, right?